we're going to jump in, just get started right away. I have some news about today's class that I don't think any of you would have expected, but I actually think this is the easiest section yet. Um, because last week I said it, and I meant it last week, but last week it wasn't really anything new conceptually. It was just, okay, we talked about triads, let's add a fourth note. Now, we're not doing anything new. We are in chapter 7, but there's nothing new. It's just, okay, now that you have all these chords, how do you actually observe them in real music? And that's what we'll be talking about today. Lead sheets specifically. So, can any of you, in your own words, describe a lead sheet, what it is? Let's try a different question. Does anyone not have a clue what a lead sheet is? Let's see some hands if you don't have any idea. Austin kind of just a little bit doesn't know. Okay, so a lead sheet, you've all seen them, I'm sure. A lead sheet is a system of music, of presenting music where you only have the lyrics and then letters representing chord symbols. So, for example, if you can look in your books, we're in chapter 7 now. The second edition, this is page 137, so something close to that. If you look at the second page of the chapter, you should see Hound Dog. Now, there are two types of lead sheets. There are lead sheets where you only have the words in a letter, and then there are lead sheets where you have only the melody in standard notation and the letter for the chord. And that's what we have here. We have the melody written out. And then let's see if you turn to near the end of the chapter, once you get into the exercises, there is this Heart Upon My Sleeve song where it begins with the words, I wear my heart upon my sleeve, take it or leave it. Does anyone see that? For me, this is page 146 of the second edition. Has anyone in the first edition found one?
The first edition, I don't think has that. It just has a couple of the Elvis songs, and then there's one called "To the Moon," where it has like just the lyrics and the chord name.
Perfect. Yeah. Do you have in the colored section? Mine is blue. I think yours might be gray. Of Can't Help Falling in Love. Also in the back near the end of the exercises. Yeah. Okay. So that's get another one. Okay. So if I were to play this song, Can't Help Falling in Love, I have the chords. B minor. And I can play along with it. Now, I don't know exactly how they want those chords played. It doesn't give that information. I just have to use my own voicing and figure it out. Now, how many of you play guitar? Ask every week. One day I'm just going to remember. On guitar, it's a little more straightforward because while you can play the chords anywhere on the fretboard, most people play them a certain way. Like this is a D up at the top. With the piano, you have a bit more freedom than that. But that's it. You see the chord, you play the chord however you want, any voicing. You can play it in root position where you just have like the triad, or if it's a seventh chord, you add the seventh. And I like to put an octave in the left hand. So if it's a D minor chord, I'll have D, F, A with the right hand, and then just two Ds with the left hand. So the triad with the right hand, the two Ds with the left hand. And I will display that for you. Angle this over here a little bit. That's better. Okay, so D, F, A, and then one root with my thumb, a second root with the pinky. So nice big sound. I can add another root with the right hand if I want. I can invert it. I can even play the triad down here, and just like a seventh up here, any combination you want, if you're as long as you have all the notes there. So looking at this Elvis song again, Can't Help Falling in Love. The chords are D, F sharp minor, B minor, G major, D major, A7, G, A7, B minor, G, D over A. How would you spell D over A?
Would it be an A octave on the left hand and then A C sharp E on the right hand?
It would
Oh,
be,
my bad. D F sharp A
yeah.
on the left hand or right hand.
So again, when you see these slash chords, the first chord you see is just play it with your right hand. That's normal. The second one of the pair is just what the left hand does. And it's not the whole chord; it's only that one note. And that we talked about this in the very first week. It just has a bit of a different feel. This is so stable. That's just different, and that's yet another inversion. So then after there, we go to A7 and D. Now the song has kind of a 12/8 feel. So if I were actually accompanying the song, in fact, why don't I just accompany the song? So I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to play the track, and then I'm going to play along with these chords. Now, I don't know what the actual piano player played when this song was recorded. I don't know what voicings he did. I don't know if it was an arpeggio or block chords, or if it was some really thin texture like just that. I have no idea about any of it, but I know those are the chords that fit it. So as long as I play those chords, I may not be recreating exactly what the piano player played, but at least I'll be playing something that will complement it. And in fact, this is my preferred way of playing everything. Whenever I play piano, I very rarely actually, like if I'm playing something from like a pop or rock song, especially from musical theater, I don't really look at the notes unless there's something really important. I generally just look at the chords and kind of make it up as I go. So this is me playing along with Can't Help Falling in Love, looking at nothing but these chord symbols, not really knowing the song other than having heard it many times. Now to just do block chords so it's easy to see. Another approach to this is you don't even have to play along with that. What I just did would be something like if someone else was singing or if you were singing, then you play that to accompany yourself. The other option is to take those chord symbols, play the triad or the seventh chord in the left hand, completely isolated to the left hand, so something like this. As you can imagine, this one's a little bit more difficult, especially if you're right-handed, because you have your subordinate hand doing more. And then if you can figure out the melody, you put them together. So I don't know the melody, but I think I can figure it out quick enough. I think that's it. Where did I go? and that's so you can create your own arrangement from just well, you thank you, from just the lead sheet, unless you have the melody. So now let's turn back to that first example near the very beginning, the other Elvis song. This is, I mean, there are a bunch. Love Me Tender, Hound Dog. So if we look at Hound Dog here, second page of the chapter, everyone has Hound Dog, right? I think we said yes. Okay, so we look at just the melody. I feel like that's not quite how the melody goes. That seems, it seems close, but it seems a little off. But anyway, then you play the chord symbols with that. Now, I don't have to do the whole chorus. I can also just play the bass note. If I just play those bass notes, either holding them or with a little bit of rhythm, that works just as well. Let's go to Love Me Tender just to switch it up. So this is on the next page. So I'm only going to play the root of each chord. And I think you'll notice it still sounds pretty good. Ooh, this one's tricky. What do? If you're only playing the root, it's a G over D. Do you play G or D? Either one. Maybe this would be the one time where you play both. You have the root really on the bottom, but then the actual tonic of the chord above that. Oh, where'd I go? I think I'm on this B. There we go. Another option is you can come up with some little bass lick. For example, one that I think of a lot is if you're playing through what's that called? The Little Mermaid song, Under the Sea. Playing through Under the Sea. There's that one part there, so the melody is something like. However it goes. Anyway, the point is the next part of the song. It goes into this like. That's it. Something like that, where you take the chords, and if you notice, I was just doing triads, right? F, G, C. Something like that. Finding a way to break these chords up. So let's jump in and do some of these examples together. Let's just stick with the one we're on, Love Me Tender. So I'm going to go down the list, and I'm going to call your name, and we're just going to go in order of the chords. And if I say your name, just please spell the chord for me. So let's see who's on top today. Samuel's on top. Samuel, can you please spell a G for us?
G, B, D.
Haley, can you please spell A7?
Who did you say? Computer like today. Can you say that again?
Yeah, sorry. Can you spell it?
Okay. A7, A, C sharp, E, G.
The D7 sus, and we'll just skip straight to the D7. Silas, can you spell that one for us, please?
You said D7?
Yep.
So, D, F sharp, A, D,
What was that last note you said?
C.
Yes. Okay, who's next? Brendan, can you please spell a G for us?
GBD.
And Austin, can you spell, let's skip ahead to give you a new one, B7.
That would be B, D sharp, F sharp, A.
Yes. You have a different mic every week, it seems like. Are you using a set right now?
I got a bunch.
Yeah.
I borrow them from work.
Musical mics. Okay, so let's actually just skip straight to this week's homework. You have two things that you're doing. Some examples, not all, but some examples from the book, as well as an extra page. So let's go to this first exercise. And in fact, you guys can all just do this as we go along. Let's just go in that same order again. So we'll start back at the top with Samuel. I guess this will be a good chance to see if our exercises are the same. Mine starts with G, B flat, D. Does yours?
Unfortunately, I've run into a problem in my book, and that's that the exercise pages are all torn out.
Okay.
So I've been borrowing them from, I've been copying them from Caleb Phillips. So I don't have them right now.
Well, we will come back to you. So let's go with Brendan. Do you have the book, and do you have your exercise pages in there?
Yes.
Is your first chord G, B flat, D?
Yes.
What chord is that?
Is that a G minor?
Yes, it is. Okay, and actually, we'll go back to Samuel, and I'll just tell you what the notes are. In order, it's D. Actually, for the first time, I get to use my other window. Let's hope the flats don't mess it up. This is pretty exciting.
Is it exciting if you have to tell us it's exciting?
Yes, that makes it more exciting. Because I can't contain my excitement. Okay. So, Samuel, what chord is this? And you're thinking right now, if you wouldn't mind, talk us through your thought process.
Oh, okay. So I see that the bottom note is an A, and then D, and then F sharp.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a keyboard right next to me, so I'm gonna play the notes. A, D, and F sharp. Okay, so that's an inverted D.
Yes. There are, well, as far as what we've done so far in this class, there's only one way to indicate that. So what would you write to indicate not only a D chord, but this specific voicing of a D chord?
I would say that it's the second inversion of D.
It is second inversion. Does anyone else want to jump in? What would you write to tell that to your reader?
Would it D over or D A?
Again, please.
Would it be D over A or D
D
slash?
over A, yeah. So D over A can mean two things, and it's basically the same. All it means is you're playing a D chord and A is the bottom note. Now, we generally think of that as I'm just going to play a D chord with an A down here. That's right, This, though, is also D over A. Anytime you have that as the lowest note. Okay. Thank you, Kylie. Well, while you're in the talking mood, let's go on and do the next one together. So that B is actually a C flat, as hopefully you can see. Actually, this is a good chance to ask. Is your third example A flat, C flat, F?
Yeah.
Okay. So, pretending that this is a C flat, what chord is that?
C flat minor.
C flat minor. Well, let's first just say that the C is natural. These clearly are not in order because whenever you have stacked thirds, it's space note, space note, space note, or line note, line note, line note. So which of these notes has to move in order to make it either space note, space note, space note, or line note, line note, line note?
The F down an octave.
So now, sing it in this order. What chord is it?
F.
It's F minor. But in the example, the C is actually a C flat. So what do you call it when you take a minor triad but then make the 5 flat?
Diminished.
Yeah. So it'd be an F diminished over A flat. Let's see this next one. I'm just looking for a normal one. Okay, so scrolling down, let's see who's next. Austin, you're next. Let's skip to the second line now and do that first one. G, B, D, sorry, down here. G, B, D, F sharp.
That's looking like a G major chord with the, I don't remember what it's called when the seventh is a half step higher than the major. Is it?
You're on the right track.
I don't remember what it's called when
Well, Silas, you're up next. Would you like
the
to help?
7 is sharp.
Is it half diminished?
Not half diminished. Does anyone else have a guess as to what this chord is? So the triad, I think we can all see, is just a G major, and it has an F sharp added. So what do you call a G major triad with an F sharp on top?
I think it's just a G7.
You're so close. It's not G7. Kylie smiled. Do you know what it is?
G7.
It's a G major 7. Now, the way you tell the difference is, remember, major 7 is a half step below the root. Minor and dominant are both a whole step below the root, as is diminished. So of all the different types of seventh chords, the only one where the seventh and the octave, and this is what Austin was kind of getting to, just didn't quite get the name, anytime the seventh is just a half step away from the root, it has to be major 7. That's the only option. So this is a G major 7. Okay, let's go on to Silas now. Let's do the third example on line 2, which is A, C sharp, and E sharp. And just to make it a little bit more easier to look at, let's play it up here. It gives you the D flat. That's the one thing that drives me crazy about this program. So A, C sharp, E sharp.
Wait, so which one in the book is that?
So this is exercise section 1,
Yeah.
second line, third example.
Oh, the second one, third. Okay.
Are A, C sharp, and E.
So that's
Now this actually is a tricky one. I'll give you a second to figure it out, and then I'll kind of help you out if you need it.
is it A augmented?
A augmented, yeah. How did you get the augmented part? You're right, but what kind of process did you go through to get to it?
I've just got my keyboard in the back of the book here, and I counted the half steps in between the notes. It was 4 and 4.
Yeah, perfect. That's a great way to do it. Another way is I feel like major and minor chords. We hear them all the time. They just have a very standard, familiar sound to them. That when I hear something augmented, I'm like, ooh, that hits different. There's something special going on there. So if you're ever unsure, play it on a piano or guitar, and if you can hear that there's just something a little off, it's probably diminished or augmented, and then you can rely on any of the approaches that we've talked about to figure it out. Okay, let's move on to section 2 here. I'm just going to call out the chord symbols, and if I could have someone who has volume 1 or who has the first edition in front of them, anyone? Okay, Silas, I'm just going to call out the chords. Will you say yes or no if I'm calling out the same chord you see? This is section 2, A over C sharp.
Yeah.
B flat augmented.
Yes.
C sharp minor 7 over G sharp.
Yes.
A minor 7 flat 5.
Yes.
F sharp major 7.
It's just F sharp major in my book.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, if it says major,
Well, it's assuming 7.
that's interesting. You don't really see that. Okay, well, let's say major 7. If you could all please write that in on
Okay.
yours. That last one there will be F sharp major 7. Yeah, if it was just F sharp major, they don't need to write it. They just write F sharp. Okay, next line F7 over E flat.
Yep.
E major 7 over B.
Yep.
D augmented over A sharp.
Yes.
B fully diminished 7.
Yep.
B flat minor 7 over F.
Yep.
E flat minor.
Yep.
C7 over E.
Yep.
A minor 7 over G sharp.
Yep.
Uh-oh. Kylie asked a question a few weeks ago, and her question was, will you ever see a minor triad with a major 7? And I said, no, not in this class. I stand corrected because that's exactly what you have right there. Super gross sounding in that inversion, but you put it up here, and now it sounds like film noir, kind of creepy. So you do see it apparently. A flat half diminished 7
Yep.
and E minor.
Yes.
Great. Let's go through here and do these together. So let's just keep going in the same order. So going back up to the top, Samuel, would you please spell this first one for us? A over C sharp.
Okay. So it'll be C sharp, E, and A.
Yep. C sharp, E, and A. Okay, Brendan, if you can please spell B flat augmented for us.
Is it B flat, D, F sharp?
Yep. Kylie, if you can please spell C sharp minor 7 over G sharp.
So the G sharp would come first. E, G sharp, or I guess you would skip that one if it's on the bottom. And then B.
So there are a few different ways you can think about this. Technically, what I'm playing right here is correct. Usually, when you're doing an inverted triad, you would just spell those 3 notes in that order. Like when Samuel did the A over C sharp, it would just be like that. When you do a 7th chord, you can just start wherever it tells you, like G sharp, and go up from there. Or you can do just the G sharp and then spell it in root position above that. So what you said was right. You could have also said G sharp and then just spelled it normally. C sharp, E, G sharp, B. Either one's right. Okay, so now we're to Austin. Now, this next chord here is an A minor 7 flat 5. So we haven't really gotten into altered extensions yet, but they're really easy. There's nothing to be intimidated by. Basically, just figure out the normal part of the chord and then do what the parentheses tell you afterward. So the normal part of the chord is A minor 7. So you would figure out the notes of A minor 7, and then you would make the 5 flat. So let's do this in 2 steps. Austin, could you please first spell for us A minor 7?
That'd be A C E G,
Perfect. And now flatten that 5th.
and that would go down to E flat.
So this chord here has another name, a synonym, if you will, a name that we've discussed before. So if you look here, we have a minor triad that we then made diminished, and then you have the 7 that's a whole step lower than the root, because this is the root and this is where the 7 is. So what would you have called this chord? And you can see the letter names to the left of it, A, C, E flat, G. What would you have called this if you didn't know that the book wanted you to call it an A minor 7 flat 5? Diminished triad with a 7 a whole step lower than the root.
A half diminished 7th.
Diminished, yep. If it was fully diminished, the 7th would be a minor 3rd below the root, or it would be 3 half steps below the root. But yeah, so it's minor. It's half diminished. So A minor 7 half diminished and A minor 7 flat 5 are the same chord. They're exactly the same chord. In most universities that have many music majors, we only offer 2 music majors on the Tennessee campus, and we have another one down on the Florida campus. But if we taught jazz theory, if you guys were music majors, you would do 4 to 6 semesters of regular theory, what we're talking about, and then you would do some more semesters of jazz theory if you were a jazz major. Are any of you jazz majors? No, we don't have that. But we're getting into jazz stuff now, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but basically it has to do with how it's functioning. So if you remember, actually Samuel and I were kind of talking about this earlier. So Samuel, go with me here. In the key of C, what's the 7th triad? What's the triad built off the 7th scale degree in the key of C?
D, F.
Yes. And what's that chord called?
The 7th.
B diminished.
Diminished. Right. B
It's a B diminished, right? So in a major key, the diminished chord naturally occurs at the 7th. Does that make sense to everyone so far? Diminished chord naturally occurs at the 7th of a major key. Okay, so what's the relative minor of C? Still with Samuel.
A.
A minor. So if we were to stack those triads going up from A, we would say in natural minor, it's on the 2nd. So the diminished chord is at the 2nd. That confuses people because we associate the diminished with being the 7th. So someone had the bright idea at some point in history that when it's a diminished chord on the 2nd in a minor key, we're going to call the minor 7 flat 5. But when it's the 7th, but when it's written as fully diminished 7 or diminished, we're going to call it, but when it's functioning as the 7th in a major key, we're going to call it half diminished 7th. The point of that is you can tell what the key is by which of those 2 names they use. If they call it minor 7 flat 5, it's the 2 of a minor key. If they call it half diminished 7, it's the 7 of a major key. It's the same chord. And if I were to ask you to play minor 7 flat 5, and you played this, and then I asked you to play half diminished 7, you played this, I wouldn't know which of those 2 systems you were using, and you'll get to the correct answer either way, but I just wanted to explain why we have 2 names for the same chord. It just tells you whether it's functioning as the 2nd or functioning as the 7th. While I have thought that last week was an easier week, and this week I think is also an easier week, maybe you're all determining now that I have absolutely no barometer of what is easy or difficult, but next week I will acknowledge is tough. So if you think this is easy, enjoy it, because next week we have to talk about something called function. Anyway, Thank you, Austin. That was correct. Longest tangent of the semester. Silas, can you please spell for us F sharp major 7?
So it'd be F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, E sharp.
Yes, good job. E sharp. And as you can see on my screen, my keyboard has no idea what I'm trying to play, but it sounds right. What is that term called when all the notes are correct on the piano, but they're displaying differently? It starts with an E. Blank equivalent.
Tonal equivalent?
Say that again?
Tonal equivalent?
Close, not really actually. Enharmonic. An enharmonic equivalent is when it's like I'm thinking D flat, but you're thinking C sharp. In reality, it's the same pitch, but they have two different names. In fact, with that definition, you could say that the terms A minor 7 flat 5 and A half diminished are also enharmonically equivalent. Okay, so your homework this week is to do exercises 1 and 2, just 1 and 2, and this other chart on Sakai. So you all bought something called the Big Book of Staff Paper, or your staff paper book of choice, and you're finally going to get to use it. So this PDF, which I have loaded, I will make it live as soon as we're done this afternoon. Pulling it back up now. This is a song called Autumn Leaves. How many of you have heard Autumn Leaves before? One person, okay. So I'm going to show you guys.
Listened to it yesterday.
You did what?
I listened to it yesterday.
Okay, well, it's nice and fresh. So this is Autumn Leaves. What you're going to do is you are going to use your staff paper and your pencil, and you are going to, one, copy this out exactly, but you're going to leave an extra space in between. So on the top line, you will make an exact replica of the notes and the measures and all that you see there. And then you'll leave a blank line in between each one. Then what you'll do is you will, on that blank space underneath, write out the chords. You'll actually spell it out in bass clef. So for example, the first time you see a chord is that C minor 7 right there. So C minor 7 is spelled C, E flat, G, B flat. So underneath that chord, you would write, using whole notes, C, E flat, G, B flat. Then the next measure is F7. So you would spell F7 using whole notes, F, A, C, E flat. It doesn't matter which octave, or if you want to invert it, that's perfectly fine as long as the notes are right. Now, every chord in this song, with just a few exceptions, is a whole note. There's one chord per measure. The first time you see it do something different is in the second line. You have that chord there only takes up 2 measures. So you would do the whole notes for G minor 7 in both measures and then tie them together. You should remember ties from back in Unit 1. It just turns 2 4-beat notes into 1 8-beat note. Does everyone remember that? You just connect with tie. And I'm going to put an example up there for you, so you're not going to be totally alone on this. In fact, what I'll do for you is I will actually do this so you can see the answer, but then I'll have you complete it in a different key. So you'll see exactly what you're supposed to do, but you'll still have the opportunity to figure these notes out for yourselves. If you have chords like, if you can please look to the second to last line, the 2 last measures, you have G minor to C9 to F minor 7 to B flat 7. You would use half notes because there are 2 chords per measure. I know the specifics of this might seem intimidating, but does the basic expectation of the assignment make sense at this point? Looking at the chords here, I think there's only one that you haven't done before, and that's the C9. Yes. Now, sometimes you'll see that there are chords on top of chords. Though those are alternates when they're in parentheses. Just ignore that. Anything in parentheses, it's not even there. Um, the C9. How could you figure out C9? There is one specific answer. I'm hoping someone will remember. And we haven't talked about it. By the way, we have not talked about this. So, generally speaking, you shouldn't be able to do it other than outside knowledge. But we very briefly touched upon one thing that could get you the right answer.
Look at the
Every time you turn your mic on, it's like for a few seconds and then it works. So, if you could just turn it on and then like count to 3, and then I think it'll work.
Okay, I don't know what the issue is. Look at the chord formula sheet.
I still can't really hear you. It's staticky. I'm gonna guess that you said use the chord formulas, and you're exactly right. There is a 9 chord formula. It's root plus 4 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. So if you want to figure out how to spell C9, open up the PDF, look up how to spell a 9 chord, and spell it starting on C. Okay, that's it. This is a relatively short one this week because, again, there's no new material. It's just taking what you've been working on for the last 2 weeks and now applying it. So, just a reminder, the 2 things you're doing are exercises 1 and 2 from the book and this PDF where you are handwriting out the chords and accompaniment to Autumn Leaves. I am going to submit my own version of the same song but in a different key so you can see exactly how yours should look, and then you will create your own with the other one that I've supplied for you. Is everyone good on that? Who's worried? Who's dreading it? Okay, optimistic, or at least too polite to say anything. Either one's fine. Okay, so as I mentioned, I want to take 5 minutes before and after to talk to one person at a time. And I think, Brendan, you're the end of today, right? Okay, cool. So everyone else, we're good to go. You all can take off. I will get that posted this afternoon. Otherwise, reach out to me if you have any questions, and then I will see you next Wednesday. Okay, take care.